Okay, we got the spinning wheel going. That's great. So I think we are live besides we need to get this last one going here. So
Well, it'll get going. It'll get going. And those that are on the Twitch or the YouTube or the Facebook, they won't miss a whole lot while we're saying welcome and to Broncos for Breakfast, edition 3. This is the second week. It feels like we've been doing this for a year already. To me, it's like this is good. It feels very familiar already, and hopefully that those of y'all are tuning in, welcome back. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I'm Scott Kennedy. You can find me on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. That's Nick Kendell. You can see where you can find him. You probably already knew him. You're probably wondering who the hell I am, though. So, Nick, it is good to see you again on a Tuesday before draft week. It's Broncos for Breakfast.
Yeah, good morning. I got my coffee here, all good to go. Everybody's joining us on their morning commute. It's 7 a.m. here in Broncos, or in Pacific time, but it's 8 o'clock in Broncos country. We got Jamil coming in right away, Broncos country. Jamil looks like he's rocking the Alabama hat as well.
I would say that's Alabama. Don't call that a Braves hat. Not with that crimson and that little /A. That's an Alabama hat.
I have always heard that the way you tell them apart is between the Braves and the Roll Tide A is that the Alabama one has a mullet on the top. So
I was going to say something about teeth. But yeah, no, it's that little tilde up on the top of the A. Exactly. is the Roll Tide A.
And we got Ruben in here. Morning, guys. Morning to you with the Kobe picture. We got greetings early gang. Dakota Whitehouse in here. We got TJ the bed. Speaking of bed, and it's a little early here. You don't need to be teasing me like that. Rocking the Fortnite thing for Twitch as well. But yeah, guys, building the Broncos. You can find us. Make sure you're following us on at Mile High Huddle. I don't believe we have a Twitter page yet, but we will soon enough. And Scott already introduced ours. So we got John's in the house too. How you doing, John? Typically the producer for the evening shows. So let's get to it. The Broncos obviously have been out and about as much as they can in the world as it currently is, traveling some pro days. And there's been a lot of rumors that the Broncos are interested in 2 quarterbacks specifically, Trey Lance and obviously Justin Fields, both quarterbacks that are projected to go in the top 10. But are they going to make it to 9? Are they not going to make it to 9? Well, Broncos have been interested. There's been rumors moving up to 4. There's been rumors moving up to 5. Now things have changed a little bit. Again, the Miami Dolphins sitting there at 6, which I think you and I both share similar feelings to whatever the heck the Dolphins are doing. Great process moving down from 3 to 12, but then to immediately turn around to go to 12 to 6, to give up another future first too. I mean, what are they doing? What's going on here? It's just so weird.
Yeah, I thought they made a great trade getting out of that spot, but then I thought they gave up too much to get back up into it. So maybe they're having a little seller's remorse at that point. And now they're looking to get maybe that pick back. It almost feels, we use draft day lines all the time. When we're talking about this, it feels like that. It's like, wait a minute, we gave up too much. Now we need to start crawling back a little bit. Who knows? I'll say it again. I've said it 50 times. This is the most intriguing draft we've had in a long, long time. And having these elite quarterbacks helps make it so. But it's not just the quarterbacks. If you're in the top 12, top 13, top 15, you're going to get an impact player next year, or a quarterback that it might need to develop a little bit. Neither one of those scenarios are pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it does this. So Facebook user, good morning to you. I have no idea, but you want to be anonymous. There you are. We got ED Bulk in as well. Hello from Germany. A Guten Tag. I don't know how to say good morning in German. One of my good friends lives out in Munich, so good to see you.
Interesting out in Europe. For any of y'all that want to stick around and talk a little football after this, after Nick goes, if it'll stay live, I'll be happy to talk football and my thoughts on Super League. I won't get into it now, but I'll be happy to stick around and talk some football after we get done with Broncos for breakfast.
Yeah, it would be, man, crazy things are going on. I've been thinking about you, Scott, because you're such a big football fan that I'm curious what your opinion is here, especially with how much you like the format. So I bet you have some hot takes there. But speaking of, go ahead.
No, it's disgusting. And I'll leave it at that. Like I said, I'm not going to bother. There's most NFL fans are not international football fans, and I won't bore you with that. But those that you are passionate about it, and like I said, I'll be happy to stick around after the fact.
Yeah, well, I'm curious what you have to say as well. We got Dalen Joseph in the house as well. How you doing, Dalen? Good morning to you. Brent Weber coming in from Nebraska. Yeah, Nick, that's right. Well, I got my Hawks on today, so always rocking. It's a little chilly here today. It's been beautiful in the Pacific Northwest. And Ernie Mays in the house as well. One of the best, Ernie Mays. The Robot of Doom 5. So yeah, let's get to it. And I see your comment as well, Dakota Whitehouse. We'll get to that because that's a good point of topic that we will definitely get to. So the Broncos potentially trading up for 6. What are you reading into here? Because obviously they gave up all that capital to move back up from 12 to 6, the Dolphins that is. And now that there's rumors out there that they're fielding calls for 6, and they might be interested in trading down. Is this just me reading the tea leaves too much, or does it read to me that the Dolphins think there's a good possibility that Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase will be gone by pick 6?
For me, it means that they think that Trey Lance will still be available at 6, and they might be able to trade out of 2 spots and get. I mean, if they can trade down twice for quarterbacks that are in that spot, the Dolphins played this draft like a fiddle. It was amazing because we've talked about the beginning that the Falcons are going to have to start talking up Trey Lance and Mac Jones because they're sitting at 4 if they want to try and trade down and get maximum value, because now the first 3 quarterbacks are gone. And then the 49ers come in and they start talking up Mac Jones. It starts going Mac Jones, Mac Jones, Mac Jones. And the Falcons are saying, hallelujah. Well, if the Falcons end up taking Kyle Pitts, then there's still either Justin Fields or Mac Jones or Trey Lance still available in that 5 spot. If Cincinnati doesn't take him, they go Penei Sewell. They're not taking a quarterback. So if they don't trade down, then maybe 2 of those guys are still available at 6. Okay, now if you're the Dolphins, you don't need a quarterback, and we've seen how expensive it is to trade up in the draft to take a quarterback. They could get that first-round pick that they traded back and turn it into 3 more picks. I mean, if they can move down twice, Miami gets executive of the year as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's a really good point. From what I've gathered, and you probably have better league sources than I do, but it does sound like the Dolphins are particularly interested in Chase or Pitts if they are available at 6.
Jamar Chase was their guy from what I understand. Talking down there with Alan Poupart, who covers the Dolphins very well. You can find him on Twitter also. Interviewed him, had him on our show, and they're like, it's Jamar Chase. But the thing is there's elite receivers down the line too, so they can afford to trade down and get Devontae Smith, get Jalen Waddle, maybe Kyle Pitts in there. So there's 4 elite pass catchers in here that if you can go from 3 to 6 and then 6 to where they were the first time when they traded down, I think it wasn't 10. 12. Was it 12? Okay, and still get one of those guys, and they could pick up 5 or 6 picks on this, including 3 first-round draft picks or more. Man, that's the kind of stuff that gets the scout in me excited because I like having all those picks. I like having the hope of taking 6 of these players and one of them is going to turn out to be the guy, or 3 of them are, and having that ability to rebuild. That's what makes it fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that you can do something like that, it gives you a chance to build a really fun team around Tua Tagovailoa, or potentially, let's say Tua bombs out, doesn't really take that step, maybe a little bit too dependent on the guys around him. They have enough chips to buy into the big boy table to get a quarterback, whether that be a Russell Wilson, what happens with Deshaun Watson, who knows, Aaron Rodgers. So you need to have that capital if you're going to be able to make an aggressive move for the quarterback. So speaking of aggressive moves, Tyler coming in here, joining us on the Broncos for Breakfast, saying good morning to you, Tyler. Loving the new pod and time frames. The Dolphins are making some draft day level moves. LOL. Peyton is 2 DB4L. Peyton has not been as aggressive, but I feel like he's been very calculated, which is good. I mean, the Broncos have cap space. They don't have as many picks as the Dolphins did, obviously, but every single move I feel has had really good foresight. The only move that some people might disagree with, at least from where I'm sitting, is the moving on from Philip Lindsay, bringing in Mike Boone. But there are special teams ramifications, money ramifications that make sense for that move, in my opinion. So it will be really interesting to see what happens. But thank you very much, Tyler, for joining us and dropping the super. We really appreciate that. So I want to get to this comment here from Dakota Whitehouse real quick, since we are talking about the Broncos and, again, being linked to specifically Trey Lance and Justin Fields, not Mac Jones. Dakota coming in. Here's the problem with the rumors of Lance and Fields, or rumors again. About every Broncos fan on Twitter thinks those 2 will be automatic quick fixes when they're unproven. So take it away, Scott. What are your thoughts here? Because obviously every single prospect is unproven until they're not. And some guys take a little bit, but then sometimes you get Justin Herbert who comes in and like, oh man, this guy can't process. He doesn't have good pocket movement, and snap of the fingers, breaking rookie records like nothing behind the worst offensive line in football.
Here's how I want you to pay attention to how I phrased this just a few minutes ago. Was everybody in the top 15 is either going to get an exciting impact prospect or a quarterback, because I don't expect the quarterback to be an instant impact player. Now you can still improve, but they're still rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And you have to have, and if you're drafting a quarterback down in that area, unless you're trading up for that from that spot, if you're a 4-12 team, a rookie quarterback, Jacksonville's not going to be that much better next year. I don't care how good Trevor Lawrence is. They're not going from 1-15 to 10-6. It's not going to happen. You want to try and protect him to make sure you don't break him in half over the next 2 seasons. And Troy Aikman, what was he, 1-15? His first year. That's what you can still expect. So I completely 100% agree with you, Dakota. It's a pick for the future. A rookie quarterback's not going to come in and solve anything or everything right away by any stretch of the imagination, especially if you were a losing team last year. So you can be excited about the hope, about the future, but if you're going to try and win now, you're not taking a quarterback. You've already got a quarterback.
Yeah, and I would like to add, a lot of people are saying, well, then what's the point of taking the quarterback? I think you're probably in the same playing field you already are with Drew Lock, because he's been a bottom 5 quarterback. 18 starts. He's been struggling in a lot of areas that are imperative in today's NFL. I mean, the dude throws the ball to the other team like he's handing out Halloween or candy for Halloween. So, you can't do that in today's NFL. And somebody like a Justin
Fields, giving man, very giving.
Yeah, I mean, getting some defensive backs, some second contracts there. I think the Raiders had like half or a third of their turnovers this year against the Broncos and Drew Lock. So not good, especially in today's NFL. Turnovers have never been lower. Teams are taking care of the football. Broncos are giving it away like crazy. Worst turnover margin in the NFL last year as well. So the defense has got to do better there also. So that's the big thing for me. It's not just, obviously people have to have some perspective, and the scope changes when you bring in a top 10 quarterback. But I think that you already are in a position where you have an unknown that has been struggling, that you're still hoping to take that next step. If you're going to do that, you might as well go with the guy with the higher upside, 3 more years of control, younger, has protected the football far better, and I mean, quite frankly, is a far better prospect.
Yeah,
for Lance and Fields.
And Nick, you were mentioning Justin Herbert, so I was just looking him up, and he was still middle of the pack, which was for a rookie is outstanding. But he was, we were talking about breaking records. He was still middle of the pack, about 13th in passer rating in the NFL. So those are your expectations when you're taking a quarterback. So I was very deliberate when I said that. You're either getting an impact player or your quarterback of the future. You're not hoping to ride that quarterback, a rookie quarterback, to the deep into the playoffs.
Yeah. And we got Holden coming in here. I think he's talking about the 49ers, saying, I think Mac Jones is a smokescreen and they really covet another quarterback. Pete Schrager's mock draft just came out this morning or last night, and he said that he's still mocking Mac Jones there. That's what he's heard, but the 49ers have not come to a decision yet. And what my understanding is, Kyle Shanahan contractually gets to make the first round pick for the 49ers every year. So while the front office might be saying, go get Justin Fields, go get Trey Lance, if Kyle Shanahan says Mac is my guy, then that'll be the pick. But I have a hard time believing it's Mac Jones until I see that name come across the screen.
Well, I'll go back to what I've said again. Mac Jones is a smokescreen. For what? What are you hiding? I don't know. If you can explain to me what the 49ers have to gain by putting out a smokescreen that they could possibly take Mac Jones, I'm all ears, because I haven't heard an argument that's convinced me yet. The team that has the most to gain by the 49ers saying they're taking Mac Jones is the Atlanta Falcons. So, maybe the Falcons are the ones leaking that they're interested in Mac Jones, because I have no idea why the 49ers would be telling people they're going to take Mac Jones. What's the smokescreen? No idea. I don't get it.
Yeah, it does not make a lot of sense, but we got some more good mornings coming in here. Tim Durr, morning Broncos country. Morning to you, Tim. Hopefully all you Bronco people in Colorado also are behaving safely today. I know that it is a day in Colorado that some people might be doing some extracurricular activities. So make sure you're not driving. And, if you order a pizza, that's not the worst thing in the world, but be careful also. Hollis Patterson coming in, Broncos Nation in Lincoln, Nebraska. Man, these people are going to be upset with all this Hawkeye stuff, man. What's going on? Now, appreciate you very much. We got Jacob coming in here too. It looks like down in Indianapolis, maybe a beautiful stadium there. If you have not been there, gosh, I've been to the Combine 3 or 4 times and watched some games out there. 2 of my best friends are Colts fans, so go to watch the Broncos. I was actually at the Aqib Talib eye poke game and ran into Dwayne Allen after the game at a bar. He was fine. I mean, nobody wants to get their eye poked, but he was okay. Don't worry about him. We got Chad Eric coming in here too. Good morning, Broncos Nation. Victor Rios in the house. Raymond throwing down the gauntlet here. Raymond Alexander with his beautiful bride there. Fields with a lot of orange and blue hearts. I mean, if I had to pick, and I know that you definitely agree with me here, I'm okay with Fields or Lance, but because of where I sit, I would definitely take Fields over Lance. I would be ecstatic with either. I just trust Fields more.
I'd take Fields at 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that's where I am. I'd take him at 2. I'd take him over Zach Wilson. And on all Falcons, it's a little clickbaity, but I'm the Kyle Pitts thing for number 4 at the Falcons. I said it because in that same, you can even pull it up if you want to, but Pete Schrager's mock draft, he's got the Falcons taking Kyle Pitts and Justin Fields falling to 8 to the Carolina Panthers. I'm like, oh God, if you want to talk about a worst case scenario for the Falcons, it's having to face Fields twice a year. And I don't know how many of you know how close things can be when you're out there. People don't realize how big this country is until they go west of the Mississippi. But Charlotte's only 3.5 hours from Atlanta. It's not very far. So right up there in playing for the Carolina Panthers, Georgia kid, passed on by the hometown team. Now he's going to be in the division. That is a recipe for some bad juju, man. I don't want to see that happen at all. That's something that they could. I wrote it down and I meant it. I'm not about flashy headlines and clickbait, but if this happens, they're going to regret it for a decade. They will absolutely regret it for a decade if Fields ends up in Carolina with the number 8 pick and the Falcons passed on him. To take a receiver when they can't tackle, they can't block, they can't run, and you're going to take a receiver? No. Anyway.
See, I think if I was the Falcons, if I was in charge of the Falcons, I would be looking to trade back or take the quarterback number 1. But I do understand taking the thought process of taking Kyle Pitts. And is it my understanding? Am I correct? You're closer than I'm. Arthur Blank is technically the one who makes that first round pick. For the Falcons.
Arthur might be the best boss in the world. I mean, honestly, having grown up watching the Rankin Smith Falcons, and we can get into more Super League about what it means to have an unambitious owner and why this is so crappy, what they're doing in European football. This is why. I grew up with unambitious owners who just didn't care and were just collecting their money. Arthur Blank will hire people to put them in place to do a job. And then if he's got any problem, he's actually loyal to a fault. They will get more time to do it. So this will be a Terry Fontenot pick. Make no mistake about that. The new general manager who came in from the Saints. So, I just think, if you're drafting best player available, 1, that's subjective. 2, if you're looking for to try a best player available, are you building for the future, 1, or are you trying to win now, 2? Of all the players available in the top 10, Kyle Pitts helps you win the least right now. They gave up the 5th most sacks and had the 28th running game and the 32nd defense. They got Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. How many balls are you going to be throwing out there? Those are 2 guys with 1,500 yard reception yards on their resume. What's Kyle Pitts going to do to help that team win that they don't already have on the roster? It's nonsense. Anyway, that's how I feel. If you haven't gotten how I feel about Kyle Pitts and the Atlanta Falcons, that's how I feel it. And this isn't to say he's not a hell of a prospect. He is. He just doesn't help this team win at all right now. Yeah. Not at all. That's an overstatement. But relatively speaking, he's the least of the needed players, and there's impact players at every other position except defensive end. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I'll just play a little devil's advocate here because that makes for good #quality content TV. I feel like the teams that have been really good in the NFL recently have had some sort of overwhelming identity, whether that be the Chiefs going with the weapons in the passing game or, the Broncos with the no-fly zone, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how a team could feasibly stop a Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, and Julio Jones. And when you have a smart quarterback like Matt Ryan, who can identify things pre-snap, and also you're going to Arthur Smith, who runs much more 2 tight end sets, that at least he wants to. I think I could understand that being the most win now move, especially in today's NFL. And you might turn into the Dallas Cowboys where your defense is terrible, but an overwhelming offense, the ability to score anytime with where the league is trending. I don't think that is the worst move. If I was Atlanta, I'd be looking to trade back or take the quarterback, but I can talk myself into it. But that's because I think Kyle Pitts is as good of a tight end as I've seen. And I'm, again, very biased. Go Iowa, 2 first-round tight ends. I was there to watch those boys. Dallas Clark, my next-door neighbor married Bob Sanders. I met Dallas Clark a few times. Loved that guy. But Kyle Pitts is different, man.
Well, for me, it's real easy. How do you stop that offense? Well, the way they've been stopped the last several years, they can't run the ball, so you can sell out to put Matt Ryan, and they can't pass protect, so you sell out to put Matt Ryan on his ass. I don't care who you've got at wide receiver when the quarterback's on his backside. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. And they can't run or protect. So what good is another receiver?
Yeah. I mean,
and you can't stop anybody when it matters. So they're giving up big leads because they can't run the ball to kill a lead.
Yeah.
And they can't protect him in order to do, dink and dunk offenses. The passing game, slip screens, that kind of stuff can become a running game, but they can't protect the quarterback and they can't run the ball and they can't stop anybody. It's real easy to me.
And you make an interesting point there that I want to pivot off to. And this is more like team building philosophy with the quarterback. I am totally, and this is me being probably overreactionary to quarterbacks that I thought were pretty good that flamed out, Dwayne Haskins, Josh Rosen. In today's NFL, especially if I'm drafting a guy, I cannot have a quarterback. I'm not building around a quarterback that is purely pocket-based because every single season, they will only ever be as good as the weakest link on the offensive line. And I need a quarterback who can perform independent of the offensive line if at all possible. Now, Matt Ryan, obviously, he's getting older. What is he going to be, 38 this year, 37, 38?
36.
36. Okay. So, that's a little different for the older quarterback, but I think that in today's NFL, it's just so hard to get good five guys across. I cannot have my offense be completely dependent on how good the offensive line is year in and year out because you're not going to have a good offensive line year in and year out. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I have a scouting philosophy about this. And the reason why you've needed mobile quarterbacks isn't necessarily because of the evolution of the game. The reason why is because Major League Baseball. And what do you mean by that, Scott? Because Major League Baseball has about, let's see, if we say 30 teams, 12 pitchers, 360 jobs, okay? If you go look at MLB drafts of the last 5 years in the first and second rounds, you're going to see probably, if there's 60 picks, you're probably going to see 40 of them that say 6'3" to 6'6", RHP, LHP. There's your pocket passers, okay?
Yep.
Even if 2 of those guys a year pan out that are throwing 90 miles an hour, your big, tall, prototype NFL quarterbacks are playing baseball now. And they've been doing that for the last 10 years. So that's helped shift the game because the pocket passer is still a smart guy who can stand back there and make the throws is still a premium. It's still a premium. They're not as many anymore because people have moved away. Those types of players are going to play baseball. They can play longer. There's 360 jobs instead of 30. They can make more money. Yeah. It's a safer game to play for your body, the health concerns. So from a scouting perspective, Major League Baseball has killed the pocket passer, not NFL defenses.
That's an interesting perspective. I wonder what Jacob Eason's doing right now. It feels like he should have been a baseball pitcher with that arm and that we'll just call it the lack of mobility. But we got Chad coming in here, Chad Eric, not boss man Chad, rocking the Denver Bronco with the American flag in it. Pretty sweet picture there, Chad. Has Locke really had a fair shot with no offseason, new scheme, and a rookie class of wide receiver? I'm going to take this one just real quick. I'm going to go no, but also that doesn't matter because it's the NFL, right? Like you have to be able to deal with adversity. Every single team is dealing with adversity. You go look at any advanced statistics with what, again, we're going to come back to Justin Herbert here because I think he's at least a measuring stick given he's the second best quarterback in the division or third, depending on what you think of Derek Carr. The Broncos are not going to go anywhere if they have the worst quarterback in the division. So has Locke really had a fair shot? No, but the league is not fair, right? Like Justin Herbert had the worst offensive line in football last year, had his rookie season with a weird offseason. There was plenty against him too. He went out there and performed. Drew Lock, bottom 5 quarterback, did not take care of the football. Bad accuracy. They had to rein the offensive scheme back. They had to take stuff off his plate so he could perform better. Not that Lock's not putting in the work, but there's just some guys it takes a little bit more to take the off the field stuff and translate it to the field. And that sounds like what's going on with Lock as well. So has it been fair to him? Has he been given a fair shot? No, but the league's not fair. Was it fair for the Broncos to move on from Tebow when Peyton Manning became available? No, you have to look to upgrade the quarterback position every single year if you don't know if you have the guy. This is a pretty rare top of the quarterback class. You're in position to go get a guy. You have to at least look at it. So fair or not, that doesn't matter to me. You have to improve the team, bottom line.
And Nick, I think there's also some confirmation bias in here. If you don't think a guy's good enough and he struggles, you're just like, see, he wasn't good enough. That's how I feel about Sam Darnold. I thought he was a 3rd round guy all along. I thought the fact that he was getting that hype was ridiculous. I thought that someone traded 3 second-round picks to get him was bad. And then he goes to a bad franchise. So we've talked about that. Then you're going to a franchise that has struggled. For me, has Sam Darnold really gotten a fair shot? Maybe. Maybe not. I still don't think he is that great. I don't think he's an elite type of quarterback that you take in the top 5. And for me, it's just been confirmation bias. It doesn't. I still might not be right, but I feel right.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I liked Locke coming in. I thought that he was a guy who had enough athleticism, arm talent, sample size where he was worth a dice roll. But we're 2 years in now. There's only 2 years left. We don't really know what he is. He's had injuries 2 years in a row. And let's just be honest, the bar in the AFC West over the last 2 years has changed. When you have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in your division, quarterback level has changed. You can't just look at it from the league average. You got to have a dude in there. And it speaks more. And it's not, I don't want to completely, dump on Drew Lock. Like if the Broncos were picking, say, pick 20, where the Bears are right now, we'd have a different conversation. It speaks more to what I think of the top of this quarterback class. And if you have a guy that you can get there, I would have no hesitation swinging, resetting that quarterback clock and giving yourself a chance with a guy with better tools, better upside, and somebody that this front office can be bought in as well. Because this front office, obviously John Elway is the biggest supporter of Drew Lock in that front office area, but they have a chance to pick their guy, and I would not steer away from that, no matter what, if it's fair or not to Drew Lock. You got to go out there and perform. He's had 18 games. A lot of guys don't even get 18 games, and it hasn't been good enough so far.
Well, let's turn this into another quote, because the only thing more expensive than trying to trade up to get a quarterback is not having one.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's something.
So this is a chance. This is a chance for the Broncos to possibly get one. If that's what they think they need, this might be the best chance they've got. And that's why I set up again. There's so many parallels with the Falcons right now, because Matt Ryan is a plus quarterback, but he's 36. So he has to be, Father Time's going to make that change.
Yep.
So, and Drew Lock is like, is he the guy? Is he not? If you have to trade up to get one, if you have to, oh God, is it expensive? It's really expensive. But if you don't have a quarterback, it's even more expensive, because then you're always picking in the top 5. And there's 5 quarterbacks in here that people think are as good as any one quarterback over the last several years.
Yep, and that's another thing too. Just bringing it back to picking 20. If let's say the Broncos, this is a pretty good roster overall. I would say it's a pretty solid roster, independent of the quarterback position. Now that does cap how far they can go if the quarterback's not good, but still solid roster. And everybody's like, oh, if you miss out on a quarterback and he busts, you're in a bad situation. Well, let's say this Broncos roster, weekend at Bernie's, Drew Lock to a 8-9 record, and they're picking 16, 17. Well, then you're in the no man's land of where and that can happen. I mean, just look at the 2017 Jaguars with Blake Bortles, the 2018 Bears with Mitch Trubisky. Good teams can prop up bad quarterbacks, but you have maybe a 1-year window, and then regression to the mean with the defense, the rest of the roster, it just come crashing back to the middle. Well, then you're in a position where you're like Washington football team this year, or the Chicago Bears this year, paying $10-12 million for Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andy Dalton. Hell no. And then these teams try to play it off like, oh, QB1, Andy Dalton. We're not stupid. That's a terrible spot to be in. So if you have a chance to go get a young quarterback, even if they miss, which again, Sam Darnold missed, they got a really good return for him, because a lot of those quarterbacks retain their value. So I don't know. I think this is the year to swing if you're going to get one. Second round pick, that's pretty good.
It's for what they spent. It's bad,
yeah.
but they were still able to get a second round pick for a guy that's been a
bottom
failure.
3. Yeah.
At the position, they're still able to get a second round pick. So
here's a question for you. Spinning off of that, let's say in a vacuum right now, these two players were available. Who would get more? We already know that Sam Darnold, what he got, but who would get more? Sam Darnold, who's been as bad as any quarterback in football over the last 2 seasons, or Saquon Barkley?
Oh, I think I would. The position, good gracious. I would give up at least a second rounder to get Saquon. I'd give up a second rounder. Oh, that question makes me angry.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because the running back position.
I'm like, wait a minute. They don't give up much for running backs, but he'd have to be worth at least a second round pick. So it's got to be a second round pick and then something. Because Saquon Barkley is 10 times a player that Sam Darnold is. It's not close.
Yeah.
But running back, who needs him? I can sign a punt. It's like punter. Only thing worse than a running back these days is being a specialist,
Long snapper.
So, to me, that it's from a talent and impact perspective, and who's your player, you can win a championship with Saquon Barkley, as your running back. You certainly can't do that with Sam Darnold, knock on wood, as the Carolina Panthers go and make me eat every word I've ever had.
yeah. Be careful putting out definitive takes in draft season. Things can turn around.
Saquon Barkley's he's an elite talent. I mean, there's no question about it.
Yep. I think it just goes to show it's, would you rather have the world's best chocolate bar or an average diamond? Like, well, it might be the best of something, but they don't carry the same value.
Yeah.
Um,
So
we got Wendelin coming in here from, I believe, Germany here. That looks like the Euro there. A super sticker. I have to ask John how to pull up the super stickers because he does some background formatting and I'm trying to produce while host the show here. So bear with me, but super sticker here from Wendelin. Thank you very much over in Germany. Let us know what the super sticker was in the comments, Wendelin. And also let us know whereabouts in Germany you are coming from because that's my homeland. Nick Kendell is the name. That's English, but my family is Jaden and they're from Ostfriesland, northern Germany. So have been over to the fatherland a few times. So let's keep going here. We got a couple. Oh, we got Ruben coming in here. Nick, I swear I'm in your mind. Everything you say, I am thinking the same thing. Well, be careful of the echo chambers.
Right there.
Pulling the strings behind me. Here's a good question, and this is something for the Colorado folks out there, since we were talking a little Jags earlier. Speaking of our friend John, Bawana Beast here. How well will Chenault do this year for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Obviously, he's somebody this team likes a fair amount. And our Broncos fans like a fair amount. I thought before he ran an injured 40 last year, which was, gosh, it was his representation. I don't know what the heck happened there. He shouldn't have run. But really good season last year, a fun weapon. And I'm really excited to see what he can do in this Urban Meyer offense. Get him some space. Oh, let him run.
I don't know as much about him. That's one of yours, Nick. I'll defer on all of those.
Okay.
The Urban Meyer offense is it's going to be tough because we haven't seen an Urban Meyer offense, honestly, at this level. What an Urban Meyer offense has been was your primary running back is your quarterback, or a slot receiver. Percy Harvin coming across. The big power, and that's not going to fly here. But Urban Meyer is smart enough to adapt without a doubt. So, I don't know quite what to expect. So, we've said before, if this was college, he wouldn't be taking Trey Lawrence. That wouldn't be his number one pick. Trevor Lawrence. I'm mixing up my guys now. He wouldn't be taking Trevor Lawrence. That wouldn't be his guy for a college offense. So it's going to be an interesting experiment down in Jacksonville. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Chenault can do there. Another year healthier, and just his size, what he can do with a little bit of space. Man, he's going to be a lot of fun. He's somebody that I am definitely targeting in my fantasy football leagues this year. Yeah, he will be a lot of fun. We had another question here. Oh, we got one. I'm pulling up the superstar. Oh, just the heart eyes with the mouth wide. So really exciting. Thank you very much, Wendelin. Still let us know where you're coming from in Germany, but we really do appreciate that. And also thanks to John for hopping on real quick and pulling that up. I'm still trying to figure out my P's and Q's here as far as the producing stuff. So appreciate it. I can't find this question right here, but I have one for you. Let's say the Broncos are picking at 9. Would you be more interested in the Broncos giving away, let's say, a round 4 pick for Gardner Minshew, or would you rather take a shot on Mac Jones?
At 9?
Yes.
I'd probably rather have Mac Jones. I think that's the guy. I don't like recycling all these guys. If getting quarterbacks in the free agent market or anything like that it's tough. Teams hold on to their quarterbacks. They pay them max value, and if they're really good quarterbacks, they hold on to them. So, I don't want to mess up his name. Nasruddin Dice. I like his questions. Nick, would you trade back with Washington and get a 2022 first, 2022 second, 2021 third, and a 2022 sixth? Nick, I'll let you answer, and then I'll answer.
2022 first, 2022 second, 2021 3. I mean, that's a heck of a haul. It would really depend on how much you love that quarterback right in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, if they're trading this much capital, it's because they're coming up for a quarterback. There's always that quarterback premium that teams will pay just because of the value of the position. But let's say I had any hesitation about Fields or Lance or Mac there at 9, and one of them was available and this team was willing to move up, then I would, I just really love Trey Lance and Justin Fields. I think I'd probably take the quarterback and reset that and be like, I appreciate all the picks, but picks are only as good as the players you select them with, and you're not anything without a quarterback in this league. So I'll probably take the quarterback, but this would make me think long and hard. And if I liked, obviously we're still very preliminary process. If I like this 2022 quarterback class more than I do right now, I would consider this more because this would give you a buy-in for that class. But right now, Spencer Rattler a lot of talent, but the character rumblings, the maturity rumblings are concerning. Sam Howell, I don't love. Desmond Ritter, it's fun, but has work to do. Carson Strong, pocket quarterback, probably not going to be for me. Malik Willis, great live arm, amazing athlete, kind of sprays the ball a little bit around too much right now. So there's fun guys next year, but I don't think any of them hold a candle to the top 3 or 4 in this class right now. Things can change, but everybody's like, oh man, look at Joe Burrow coming out of nowhere. Look at Zach Wilson coming out of nowhere. Well, for every single one of those guys, there's a Christian Hackenberg, there's a Matt Barkley, there's a Cody Kessler, et cetera, that, or Jake Fromm that falls off the face of the earth and never really should have been talked about anyway. So it goes both ways. I'd rather just take the here and now and take the quarterback. But good question.
I think it's a good opening spot for sure. You take that offer and you start shopping it around. If what's Dallas want to do? Who else wants to move around? So who else is taking it? Now for me, being in a little bit different situation, because I'm thinking about number 4. I'm thinking at 4, yeah, I'd probably take that. Let alone 9. But again, what else can you get? What else? And that's the general manager's job. Being in a little bit different situation, because I think Atlanta can get 4 more years out of Matt Ryan and who's still playing at a above average level. So for Nick's answer, what that tells to me is like, we've got to move on from Drew Lock. We have to have a replacement sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I don't have an issue rolling with Lock again and giving him another shot, but like I said, I really, really like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence. I think it's a pretty special top of the quarterback class. It's probably not going to be 1983, but I'd put it above 2018, which was talked about as being generational, right? Like, I think that there's better arms in this class and athleticism than what we saw in 2018. So if I can get one of those guys, I'm going to do it. But it will be interesting to see. Stoney Neff saying the Drew Lock hate show. I'm sorry, Stoney. I'm speaking the truth. We'll see how it plays out. But, it is what it is. And you can't judge a player until after year 3, the old saying goes. It's an old saying for a reason, right? The game has changed. And especially with quarterbacks, you only have a very short window to maximize that rookie quarterback contract. And right now, the Broncos still don't know what they have with Drew Lock. And they only have 2 years left to control.
And things are different. Like you said, it's an old saying. These guys are playing quarterback year round now. They're 7-on-7 leagues. They're playing quarterback year round from the point of being in middle school all the way through, and they're getting professional coaching. They are so much more developed by the time they get to the NFL than they ever used to be. It's still the speed of the game is still much different, but the learning curve isn't nearly as steep as it once was when we were talking about year 3 of a guy. Year 3 of a guy, you better already have your mind made up, because like Nick says, you're talking about having to sign him to another quarterback, and it's expensive to sign a quarterback to a second deal. Yeah,
and also there's the conversation. This is a great point. With Drew Lock, it's not can he be the guy? The question then pivots now to, is he a guy who's worth giving that second contract? Right. And right now, I don't think the answer is yes. I mean, he's been a bottom 5 quarterback, but you don't want to be in a situation like the Washington football team where, you're kind of stringing along Kirk Cousins and then you're left in no man's land because, well, we liked Kirk, but not enough to pay him that market shifting money. And right now, that's probably the best case scenario, most likely best case scenario for Drew Lock. Let's say he does take that step and he ends up being a top 22 to 15 quarterback, right? I think that's doable for Drew Lock. I think that's doable. But I don't want to pay that guy. Heck no, I don't want to pay that guy, because you're really hamstringing your roster, right? I'm only paying that guy if I think they can be a top 10, top 8 quarterback. And I don't see that for Drew Lock right now with all his deficiencies. And biggest thing for me is turning the ball over. You can't have it. Vic Fangio, he's already thinning up top. I know he lost all that weight, so good for him, but he needs to keep that hair, man. And turnovers for the old ball coach, not acceptable.
Nick, will you click on Diamond Rattler's comment for me? It says, If the learning curve was that steep, name me 5 other QBs besides Mahomes since he came into the league. To me, this goes back to what we were saying earlier, and if you're watching this on and skip forward or something, but I was talking about this as a scouting point. There's no jobs in the NFL. You got guys you got starting quarterbacks that are locking down a starting spot for 20 years right now, 10 to 15 minimum. So when you get that guy, they stay there. So again, this is why so many more talented arms, big talented arms, are playing baseball. MLB, they're going to MLB. The depth of the quarterback position has gotten extremely shallow over the years because the guys that are getting there are staying there for a long time, and I can make the same money and play longer and be healthier, play in Major League Baseball, make more money because there's more jobs available. So for me, it's not necessarily the learning curve. It's the fact that it's a tough position to take a hold of. There's only 32 starting quarterback positions in the NFL, and 20 of them are probably taken before the first snap is taken, at least. There's not that much quarterback competition. There's not as many good quarterbacks coming up, and there's guys that aren't leaving, that are holding on to it for more than they ever used to. So this goes back to Nick's point, is if you've got the chance to get your guy, you get him now. Because it's a decade-long decision or more if you hit.
Yeah. And just to be fair, 10, 15 years for quarterback prospects, let's say good career arc there, 10, 15 years, I think that's pretty safe to say. That takes the Broncos back in time, all the way back to when Jake Plummer was the starting quarterback. Think about how much football has been played since Jake Plummer was taking snaps for the Broncos. Having a franchise quarterback for that long, that's the dream. But then we can have all these other fun questions where it's not like, is the quarterback good enough or not? How can we get a quarterback? Does it even matter if you don't have a quarterback? It's kind of like football nihilism, right? It doesn't matter if you don't have a quarterback. So speaking of some of those fun questions here, we got Robot of Doom, number 5 here with the big R. Looks like a Rocket League for the Pokemon fans out there. The bigger question is, what do we do with round 2? Right tackle, safety, or running back?
And see, Nick, I was immediately thinking Rutgers. So
it looks like Rutgers.
You can tell where my head is. I was like, wow,
I'm even in the Big Ten.
Fan. Good for you. So the big round 2, running back or safety. There are good safeties or good running backs to be had throughout this draft. I think if you're talking about, it's like, I need one of these two guys, I would lean towards, unless it's Najee Harris who somehow slips down, or maybe even ATN. If one of those two guys is available, then okay. Otherwise, if there's an equal need there, safety isn't nearly as deep as running back. And those are two positions that are not premium, so to speak. You don't see them getting taken that high anymore. But for me, the safety position, there's not as many good safeties as there are running backs that can do a job. I'd go safety in that spot.
And just going over the data over the last 20 years, one position that is one of the hardest to hit in the NFL is the safety position. And the way it tends to go is the positions that are more assignment-based and the further away from the football, those positions just really a lot of hit or misses. You can find a lot of the good safeties in the NFL right now are day 2 picks. So if Javon Holland is there round 2, Richie Grant is there round 2, I'd be interested in those guys. But day 2 for me, I'm looking for edge rusher, linebacker, offensive tackle, cornerback. Those are positions. I mean, Asante Samuel would be an amazing scheme fit for the Broncos. A lot of off-ball stuff, a twitchy guy. His ball skills had taken steps forward. Great tackler. I'd love him in this scheme. We talked about it a few times last Thursday. Spencer Brown. I'm not sure. I maybe would try to see if he could get there to 71, but with his tools, that might not happen. But there are tackles to be had there. I mean, maybe an Alex Leatherwood is down there. Maybe a Sam Cosme. Maybe a Dylan Raduns. So those are the positions I'm looking at. Also, linebacker. I really like Baron Browning from Ohio State for this defense. I know that he played a lot of different spots for Ohio State's defense. Some of the processing stuff, like when they put too much on his plate intellectually, like kind of slowed him down. But I mean, the tools, the athleticism, if you're going to do short zone drops and let him attack and come downhill, maybe do some stuff with the edge as well, because he's so explosive. I mean, he was killing it down there in the Senior Bowl when he had chances to rush from the edge. He's somebody at pick 40. I'd be like, hell yeah, sign me up. You don't have to use pick number 9 on a linebacker. This is a good top 100 class, but good question. In running back, I mean, if Najee Harris or Javonte Williams are there at 40, sure. I don't love the value of the running back position, but if you can get one for their 4-year rookie contract, use the hell out of them and then let them walk after their 4 years are up.
It's so cruel. Use them and abuse them. This sport is so cruel.
It is.
Let's just burn them out on a rookie while we cap their earning ability and beat them into the ground. It's a little disgusting, frankly.
It is. I mean, but it's like the way I look at it, and it's not fair. These are human beings, but like if you're paying a running back a big second contract, it's like paying more money for a used car, right? Like it has the most value it ever have. The moment you drive it off the lot, the value starts dropping dramatically. So
a depreciating asset.
Yes, vastly, quickly depreciating.
You mentioned Richie Grant. That's my guy. I love Richie Grant. And if you got the 10th pick in the second round and he's there and you got a need at safety, yeah. I'm a big fan of Richie Grant. And then the other one, they're two different guys. If you need an in-the-box guy, I'm a pretty big fan of Hamza Nasruddin of Florida State. He's got a lot of size, and he'll come up and thump you. He's your thumper. You know, I've been watching these guys pretty closely, running all Falcons, because they lost 3 starting safeties last year. They signed one that I think can come in and start as a low-cost free agent. but they're going to have to come out of this draft with at least one starting. Yeah. So I've been keeping an eye on those guys, and Nasruddin and Grant are two of my favorites. Very different, so depending on what you need.
The Broncos, I know that a lot of Bronco fans, they'll have a little bit of nostalgia for the Wade Phillips defense, but Vic Fangio does not really use a box safety, right? That's not really in his wheelhouse for what he looks for schematically. A lot of cover 4, a lot of match quarters going on. So he's looking for safeties who will play the deep part of the field and then come down and can play the slot. So while Nasruddin, who is, when you can pronounce that, you know you're in the heart of draft season, is a good box fit safety, I don't think that he's one that actually makes sense for the Broncos specifically. So I'm looking at, again, Javon Holland makes a lot of sense, can do some nickel stuff, can do some 2-deep stuff. And he tested out of the gym. I know that he's been training for a year for that specific pro day, but I wouldn't probably take him round 2, maybe, but round 3, sign me up. I also, if the knee checks out and he's healthy, Wiggins from Cincinnati is so much fun. I absolutely love Wiggins. And round 4, if he's still there, I would like Jamar Johnson as well. So safeties who can do the 2-deep stuff and then come down and maybe do some slot work as well.
Where I like Nasruddin especially is you've got to face Kelsey twice a year. And he's a 6'3", long-armed safety that you can match up. We call those good tight ends matchup nightmares. This is a guy you drop man on a tight end. So that's where I really like him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Wendelin coming back in here. Got to show you guys some love. Well, we really appreciate that. I'm so excited for next week. Us too. I think we are going to, if Chad will make the streams in a timely manner, giving him a hard time, hopefully he hears that on the listen back, then I think we're going to come at you guys Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, if Scott is up to it as well. But we got a lot of draft stuff to cover, and I'd love to, every chance I get to talk football, I'm enjoying it. So I appreciate Scott coming on here and doing that as well. And also Wendelin saying, I'm from Bavaria, the Oktoberfest state. So cheers to you, Prost. And I'll hopefully be over there sometime. Like I said, one of my really good friends lives out there in Munich, so I would love to visit there. And we got Sykes JB coming in here, Gesundheit.
Maybe JB Sykes.
JB Sykes. All right. I just don't want to see the O-line not addressed again. QB won't matter if no depth. Great show. Thank you. Well, thank you, JB. We really do appreciate that for you coming on this morning. It's kind of a chicken or egg thing, right? Like you need to have a good enough offensive line to function, but for me, it starts with the quarterback, right? Justin Herbert, the worst offensive line of football last year. Yes, it was second year in the system. Yes, they had some established weapons, but you can get by with a subpar offensive line. You cannot get by with a subpar quarterback. And I think it was a really interesting point from Daniel Jeremiah yesterday saying that teams around the league, their offensive line, maybe you can retort or push against this one, but he said something along the lines of teams around the league are starting to understand that while it is great to have one great offensive lineman, it's much more important to have quality and consistency across your starting 5, because with how teams can match up specific players, if you have one weakness on the offensive line, they're going to match up their best pass rusher against that guy scheme-wise and go to town. So while it's great to have a Joe Thomas, if you have 4 D-level, F-level offensive linemen next to him, it's not going to matter. He's not going to move the needle that much because it's more about how good that 5 is. So you don't have to use a first-round pick on the offensive line. It's more about developing and taking guys in the top 100 and fitting those needs.
Well, and from a scouting point, I always said that skilled players are born, offensive lines are built. Mm-hmm. So, if you've got, you can get value in the middle rounds if you've got the right scheme and the right coaching to build around those guys. So JB Sykes, I think you can address the offensive line. And there's good depth here, especially in the interior, that you can address those guys in the middle rounds. Down at the Senior Bowl, there were 15 guys down there that I'm like, yeah, he can play. Yeah, he can play. Yeah, he can play. And not only could they could play multiple positions. So, I think there's going to be good depth in this draft class on interior line. So keep an eye there for sure.
Yeah, we got Diamond Rattler coming in here again. Diamond and I have had a few back and forths with in regards to Drew Lock, which is fine, man. Echo chambers are dangerous. It's good to have different opinions out there and different takes. He's talking specifically here, or she talking specifically here about the fairness for Drew Lock. So the argument is Lock hasn't been given a proper chance. He has been in changing systems since forever. How do you explain the 4-1 split? Last year was rough because Shermer came in. So I have a few things here, then I'll pivot. I'll hand it off to you, Scott. But what is the lifespan for an offensive coordinator in the NFL anyways? 2 years?
Yeah, I was going to say about 2 years. Yeah, for sure.
you're going to have that rotation anyway. Systems are going to change. It's up to the quarterback to be able to, and obviously you'd rather have a guy come in a Patrick Mahomes situation, but that's just not the norm in the NFL. And so you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to overcome adversity and not make excuses. You need to separate the excuses from the reasons. And how do you explain the 4-1 split? Well, guys, sample size is everything, right? Like the Broncos were 4-1 last year, but what was, take that Carolina game out, what was the Broncos, or what was his touchdown interception ratio? Was it like 4-3? 4-2. It was not great, and very much a lot of it came on the offensive line coming together. Melvin Gordon playing as a top 5 running back in football down the stretch, and the Broncos playing, let's be honest, some of the worst defenses in football down the stretch last year as well. I mean, that matters. When it's a small sample size, who you go against really matters. So that's, it's good. It's trending in the right direction. It doesn't mean that Drew Lock is a lost cause by any means, but I'm not going to put that much weight on it for me to make that or let that dictate my decision for going to the quarterback this year or not in the draft.
Well, and you need competition there. That's the thing, is like you're not sold there for sure. So you definitely need competition at that spot, whether it's a guy you're going to take in the first round and spend the type of draft capital and money that makes you think that he should be the guy moving forward, or if you're going to bring in a second or third round guy and make sure that there's a healthy competition there.
Yep. And I've heard Teddy Bridgewater's a name to look out for. Gardner Minshew's still a name to look out for. It's really interesting. Quarterbacks in the NFL, if I think 2/3 of the starters in the league were drafted in like the top 12 picks. So that's just kind of the nature of it. The NFL is pretty good at identifying the proper talents, and people will point at Tom Brady, which, that's such an outlier. I don't even know. Like, that's like pointing at somebody who won the lottery and saying, like, look, that guy figured it out. That's what we should do. We should just simply win the lottery.
Well, the phrase I use there, Nick, all the time is, with a small enough sample size, I can prove any point. I mean, I should be, if I want to need a Super Bowl MVP winning quarterback, I should go looking at Target to see the guys stocking the shelves. Right, Kurt Warner? Or you should never take a guy. Look, Tom Brady was taken in the 7th round. Why would we use a first round pick? Small enough sample size, I can prove any point you want to make.
Yep.
So let's expand it. I'm going to go with the averages on this. I'm going to go with the probability. The probability is that the guys that are taken early are going to be better players.
Yep. Especially at quarterback. And I think the league has changed as well. Like, here's a question for you. Let's say that Drew Brees or Russell Wilson were in the draft today. Do you think those guys fall to where they did? Because I think you had some old school scouting heads in the league at that point saying, like, this guy doesn't meet the height threshold. Mm-hmm. Well, Kyler Murray went number 1 overall 2 years ago. The game's changed. There's more shotgun than ever. The offensive lines are split a little bit further. There's more spread concepts. The height is not such a requirement anymore. And I think that Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, because of the arm talent, because of the athleticism, I mean, Drew Brees, really actually a pretty good athlete coming out of Purdue there, would have gone much earlier than they did because of how much the league has changed over the last 10, 15 years.
I don't know, I don't know, again, I think there's still some bias there. Kyler Murray's obviously when we were at Scout, and I had this discussion with Barton Simmons, who was the director of scouting at 247 when I was the director of scouting at scout.com. And now he's moved on and he's doing player personnel over at Vanderbilt. He's like, did you guys give Kyler Murray 5 stars coming out? I said, yes, we did. He goes, well, we didn't, because we're using the NFL draft as our barometer. And he didn't seem like at 5'11", 5'10", he didn't seem like an NFL guy. Well, he turned out to be an NFL guy anyway. But at the time, I was like, well, we're scouting for college recruiting, and this is the best damn quarterback. If Johnny Manziel can win a Heisman Trophy, then Kyler Murray is a 5-star guy. That's the way it should be. So I wanted to get up. We had a super here from Mr. Boggins that I wanted to, before we got back to Malcolm. If we can hit on Mr. Boggins real quick, he says, thoughts on Janarius Robinson. There seems to be a few guys like this in the draft. Big athletic, lack of production. He hasn't done a ton at Florida State. Maybe 3 or 4 career sacks. Not quite the freak athlete that Jason Owe is at Penn State, but good. 260 pounds. Sub 4.7 40. Good size. So I think he's a risk. But you get him into the 2nd and 3rd round, he's much less of a risk. But if you're looking at him higher, I think he's a risk because of he doesn't have that just unbelievable. Nobody does, though. You look at Jason Owe and you look at him and you're like, his numbers are insane. His numbers are top 5 cornerback at 260 pounds. This guy's just really damn good. But if you're going to risk on a first round, risk on Owe, and then but later on, I think Robinson could be a good pick. One of those high upside picks. Not necessarily you're not drafting him for what he's done, but what you think he can do. And coaches are very arrogant. They think that, hey, I see that athlete, I can get the very best out of him.
Yeah, and also speaking of Florida State, Joshua Kendo is another one who's kind of in that mold as well. 6'6", 260 pounds. And man, if you guys want to have an athletic freak that does not get developed over their course of the college career, send them to Florida State, because I don't know what the heck's going on down there. They have all these great athletes and they just cannot get out of their own way. It's pretty sad. Outside of obviously Jalen Ramsey and Derwin James recently, those two. I mean, maybe that didn't even matter where they went. But
well, they've changed head coaches a few times for a reason. And at a certain point, you've got to have more than just athletes. You got to have football players. And when people, what are you looking for? So you're looking for the physical skills, and then you're looking for the production. And the guys that are going to be ranked the highest are the ones that put them both together. Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a guy that has elite athletic ability, elite playmaking ability, and instincts. That's a guy right there. Jason Owe, beyond elite athletic ability, but not necessarily the production. So there's question marks there. So that's how you start stacking them up. And I think there was a question that we were skipping is, where have you had the most and least success in scouting prospects? Over the long haul, it's offensive line, and it's not close, because those are the guys that come in at 225 pounds into college and just continue to develop. The draft, half of this NFL draft are going to be guys from not even non-P5 schools, but not necessarily your top 20 premier programs, the offensive linemen. It's funny when you're doing Monday Night Football and they're going across, they're like wide receiver, LSU, running back, Alabama, wide receiver, Ohio State, offensive line, North Dakota State, offensive line, Northern Illinois, offensive line. And that's just how it goes. So offensive line is by far the hardest position, not necessarily to scout, but to project, because of how the kids develop themselves, how the physical maturity it takes to play that position. So for me, it's OL. Transitioning, if I see a really good offensive lineman, he's probably going to be a really good offensive lineman moving forward. The transition from one level to the next is quarterback, because that's up here. I can see someone that's got all the skills, but it's the hardest position to evaluate from one level to the next if they're already a finished product based on the intangibles that you can't scout. I see a guy that's 6'6", 300 pounds, running 4.9, that is pancaking guys at LSU. He's going to be a pretty good offensive tackle. That one's not hard. But across the course of it, we're talking Iowa and Nebraska. How many walk-ons have come in? How many 2- or 3-star guys have come in that were 240-pound tight ends that leave as 50-year seniors in first, in day one draft picks? So that's what I think, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Chad Eric coming in. Oh, and for me, I feel like I've done my favorites and the best I've done. I really enjoy tight ends a lot, and that's probably just because growing up watching the Hawks, they use that tight end a lot, and I like to watch and value the tight ends. And I was, banging the drum freshman year when Hawkinson and Fant were coming in. I was like, these guys are different, and they're a lot of fun. Also interior defensive line. I don't know what it is. They have Mississippi State, man. I've loved all those Mississippi State guys, and they've ended up being as good or not better than their draft slot. So those, it's easiest to evaluate the positions that are closest to the football, right? Those are the ones that the athleticism tends to translate the most. So you don't think so? I think edge rusher.
I'd almost go the opposite, honestly.
Oh, okay.
I'd go the opposite. The wide receivers and corners are easier to project than interior offensive linemen. And Richie Rich is in here saying, what positions do you think are harder to evaluate, OT or interior OL? And for me, it's the interior OL, because there are a bazillion, as crazy as it sounds, there's a zillion 6'3", 300-pound guys. There's a ton of them. They're all over the place. They're at every single Division I school. Hell, half of them are still playing high school. There's 1,000 of them playing high school ball that are 6'3", 300 pounds these days. The 6'6", 6'7" guys are harder to find. So maybe not necessarily harder to evaluate, but they're much harder to find. And that's why you get a premium in the draft. It's easy to find 6-foot guys that run 4.4s. It's hard to find 6'5" guys that are running 4.4s. That's why bigger receivers are a premium on my board. But Chad asks here, which QB threads the needle better, Locke, Fields, Lance, or Jones? Nick, I'll let you go first.
For me, it's between Fields or Jones. I don't think Fields is as good with the anticipation, but I think he's got the best ball placement in the class. I mean, he puts the ball where he wants it to go. Maybe it's not always throwing it, seeing like the perfect triangulation of like the speed of the guy running and throwing it to that exact spot. But there are a couple throws in that Clemson game that just they don't make sense. They don't add up. There's not a window there. Threads it through a needle. But as far as anticipation goes, I would say Jones, and that's something you kind of see with some of these quarterbacks in the NFL. The guys who tend to have less arm talent need to have those anticipation throws because that's the only way they're going to get it in there. So if you're putting a target down the field, I'm putting my money on Fields. But if you're actually in the game action, it might be Jones because the anticipatory throws of him. I mean, there's a reason that he's being talked about number 3. I don't see it as much, but as far as the intelligence, the ability to anticipate space and go in the right place with the ball, Jones does all that pretty well.
And let me cop out on this one and say thread the needle, Justin Fields. Drop it in a bucket, Mac Jones. Like you said, if I need it fired down line, I want Justin Fields. If I've got a bucket sitting out there on a 20-yard out and it just needs to go into that bucket, I'm probably going to take Mac Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. We got we're coming up here at the end, so if there are any supers that come in, we'll get to them. But we should be running out here pretty soon. It's already 8 o'clock here, probably 9 o'clock in Denver. Jason O'Neill coming in. Jason, good to see you. I know you're on the show. Looks like you're dealing with an injured arm there. Hope you're doing well, Jason. Which O-line player entering the drafts are the most versatile, and is that more of a need for Denver, a more versatile player? I mean, across the league, you talk to these players and they're like, you need guys who can do multiple things because it's about getting the best 5 out there. And if you can play right guard and right tackle and left guard, and you're good at all those positions, you got a much better chance of seeing the field. So that's what it is. I guess I'd go with Alex Leatherwood, right? Like you've seen him play left tackle, right guard pretty well. I also think Jackson Carman could also do some stuff with guard positions or tackle, but I think Leatherwood is probably the most versatile, and that's a great thing to have. I mean, it was a couple years ago, and he went and ended up getting a good contract, but I really wanted the Broncos to bring back Billy Turner, right? Like he was only an okay right tackle, good guard, but there's a lot of value there, and you're going to need your depth at some point and guys that can shuffle around. So I would go with Leatherwood to answer this question.
And I'm going to go with a teammate. I'm going to go with Landon Dickerson at Alabama, who was speaking. I think he was at Florida State and playing tackle, goes to Alabama, and they drop him at center, and could play guard in the NFL. Yeah. So I'm going to go with him. Another guy I really like is Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. So those guys back-to-back, they could sneak into the first round. And a lot of it has to do with their versatility. I watched Creed play some tackle, center, and guard at the Senior Bowl. And then I'll throw a wild card out here for you that you guys can go check out. And I'm probably going to butcher his name because I haven't had to say it too much. He's from Wisconsin, Whitewater. It's Quinn Miners. Mainers. Somebody help me out here. Spell it phonetically for me. But I know him as a player because he was down at the Senior Bowl too, and they were moving him around a lot. But for me, the most versatile guys that aren't is Landon Dickerson and Creed Humphrey. I think they're very, very similar players. I like them both a lot.
And obviously the chat in here saying that obviously Rashawn Slater is somebody who is extremely versatile as well. That's probably one of his best calling cards. So you have an opinion on this one?
Typically, if they can play tackle, they can play anywhere because it's the athleticism that moves them to tackle, right? Yeah. So if you've got a really athletic player, if you've got a big corner who's not quite corner material, you move him to safety. So if you've got an offensive tackle who doesn't quite have the feet, you move him inside. So typically, if you can play tackle, you can play anywhere. So these are the guys, when we say versatility, I start thinking, where not necessarily the tackles. Who are the interior guys I might be able to move around that I'm thinking of as interior guys who might be able to fill in at tackle, but who could definitely play center and guard.
And is there anything, just to pick on that one a little bit, obviously the scheme that you're running matters a little bit, but there is something to be said about a guy who's a tackle not being able to move inside because of leverage. Right? Like you have guys that can be like Andreas Pete, 6'8" guard. That works fine for New Orleans. You're not going to see that with Tennessee, right? Like you're not power driving guys off the block. Quick pass game, getting the ball out in space. That works great for New Orleans, but it's not a fit for every single lineman, and they got to have the sand in the pants, as they say.
Well, and what's strange to me is you see the discrimination against the guys that are under 6'2", but then they preach low man wins. So the defensive tackles. Any LSU fans out there might remember, Chad Leveille. He won SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He's about 6 feet tall, maybe as a defensive tackle. Couldn't get a sniff. Couldn't get a sniff in the NFL to begin with. I love those guys. They say low man wins, but then they won't take a guy. They won't recruit a guy that's under 6'2". Beats me, man.
You're probably a little bit biased there because speaking of me loving defensive linemen, so high on Grady Jarrett. Loved Grady Jarrett coming out, man. I was screaming at the TV. That was the 2016 draft when the Broncos ended up taking Ty Sambrailo and Jeff Hireman in the second and third round. Screaming at the TV, Grady Jarrett.
Grady Jarrett. And he falls some because of his height. He falls a little bit because of his height. So that's I agree. Yeah, some tackles won't play guard, but if you're in the NFL, you're probably pretty damn strong, and the athleticism typically means you could play guard or center. So when we start talking about athleticism, now one of the questions that Joel Iglesias asks: versatility or be great at one thing? You want to be great at one thing. I mean, that's how you're going to get paid. You want to be a top 5 guy at your position. If you're not great at one thing, though, learn to do a lot of things. And I coach a baseball team. If I've got a guy I know I can do a job, he might not be the best, might be the best interior, middle infielder, outfielder, but if I know I can put him there, he's got a spot on my team. Utility players. And when you've got a 50-man roster, if I've got one offensive lineman that I know can do a job, he's got a job. He's never going to get paid the way the number a starter is, but he'll have a job for as long as he wants it. So if you're not great at one thing, be good at a lot of things. But the question there is you definitely want to be great at one thing because that you elevate yourself amongst your peers. That's how you get paid.
Yeah, it always gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies when I read a scouting report or come across something like, well, this guy's versatile. He does a bunch of stuff. Like, is he truly versatile or is he just not really good at any one thing? Right? Like, it's like, if he was really great at one thing, he probably would have
be doing it.
Niche.
Yeah, he'd be doing it. If he could hit 300 constantly, he'd be doing it. If he had a shortstop's glove, he'd be playing shortstop. Yep. But again, if I've got a guy that I don't see that big a drop off from one position to the next with limited rosters that you're allowed to have, I'd find a spot for him, and it's especially important on the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. And every once in a while, you have those versatile guys who are actually like truly versatile and ascendant. But a lot of times that's just code word for hasn't really found out where they're great. The guys who come to mind who actually were great. A lot of the safeties, man. A lot of safeties asked to do so much, like Minka Fitzpatrick, Jalen Ramsey, who played safety at Florida State, and Derwin James. Those guys are actually truly versatile. But then you have Isaiah Simmons, obviously a freak athlete. Oh, he's versatile. Well, where's his home, right? Yeah. Where's his home going to be? I don't know.
Going off on a tangent for college football recruiting, I hated the term athlete. Like, there is no position for athlete in this. And, the thought process at the time is, well, we can't rank them in multiple positions. And, now I started thinking about it, I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I don't call this guy an athlete. Why can't I rank him and say, well, his best position would be running back? But he can also play safety, and this is where he would rank at both positions. The athlete's a cop out. There is no athlete position. Let's rank him in multiple positions. Why not?
And this one will hit home for Broncos country. Champ Bailey in Georgia, receiver, cornerback, returner. I mean, they don't build him like Champ Bailey, right? Like, if Champ Bailey was in this class, he'd be going number 4 overall. Probably.
He's one of the best athletes to ever play the game. In fact, I like to say Charles Woodson was such a dick that it cost Champ Bailey his ability to get looked at for Heisman consideration. Because if you compare their numbers year to the next, Champ's better at everything. Mm-hmm. But because I remember one of the quotes coming out of New York when Champ Bailey arrived for the Heisman Trophy, that this kind of leaks out of there. It's like, can we vote again? Because this guy was such a prima donna. So Champ Bailey is one of the best athletes to ever play this game, and to do it at a high level on multiple positions, he's pretty special. And we talk about athleticism and production. His brother was a better athlete. Boss was a better athlete. As far as the size, speed, explosion, Champ was 10 times a football player. Mm-hmm. But Boss Bailey was a crazy athlete. Quick story before we go. A friend of mine here trains all these guys close to my house, and I've gone over to see him. And the story he had was they thought Boss was going for a 50-inch vertical leap, and this was before cell phones and all this stuff. And they actually were having people spot him because he was jumping so high they didn't want him to come down and hurt himself.
Oh my God!
So they got him there at a 40-inch vertical. Boss Bailey with a 40-inch vertical leap, coming off a knee surgery. So Boss was insane, but he didn't have near the instincts and playmaking ability that Champ did. And you guys got to witness that for a long time. Champ was a special player.
Man, talk about manifesting greatness. 2 kids named Boss and Champ. Like they had no choice but to be great.
And then the one that you never heard up to was named Loser or something. You know?
Oh man, yeah. Podunk, like
Champ and Boss,
they
and they did it. But they came from small schools in Georgia, and we talk about level of competition. I've said it before. Most of the guys you've heard of out of the state of Georgia came from little schools, including the Bailey boys.
Well, that's awesome. Guys, that's going to do it today for Broncos for Breakfast. Thank you so much. We will be back again on Thursday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. Make sure you guys join us. Also, guys, find Scott over on YouTube as well at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. He's dropping a lot of great stuff. What's been recently? And I see you're rocking the Chelsea logo there as well.
Someone just asked me. Yep, someone just asked me. It is match day, and like I said, if anybody wants to stick around, I think you'd have to leave the chat open for a little bit. I'll be happy to talk a little international football and Super League, and even for those of you who have heard this because it's made national news and want to know what the hell this is all about, I would be happy to talk what this is all about and explain it about how international football is a lot like college football with the different conferences and rules, the competing for players and the rewarding instead of the Marxist ideals we have here in professional sports where we reward failure and punish ambition. It's actually the other way around. Everything's done on merit, and the Super League is trying to squash that. So I'd be happy to stick around if anybody wants to talk any football today.
Well, I can. If I leave, I think the chat will go down. So I'll stick around for about 10 minutes and let's get into it because I am curious your thoughts here at the Super League.
Broncos for Breakfast is officially over.
Yes, now it's
and thank you specifically to our supers for coming in. Y'all coming in and dropping supers like that is going to make this bigger and better and more often. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for being a part of that and everybody that is being part of the conversation today.
Yeah, 100%. Broncos for Breakfast. We'll see you guys again on Thursday. Now I guess we'll pivot to a little bit of Chelsea FC and European football because, man, talk about some seismic changes going on over there.
So let me, for those of you who are interested, what is this, what is this Super League and what's the big deal about it? Why are people up in arms about trying to get the best teams into one league? International football isn't franchise-based, okay? We've got a government-backed monopoly for our sports here in the United States, the NFL, MLB, NBA, and they're in collusion with the amateur ranks, NCAA. The unholy collusion of the NCAA and the NFL squashes competition. It limits players' mobility and rights. There's no place else for these players to play, and there's no way to get into that league. It's a billionaire boys club that you have to buy a franchise to get in. Every international football is set up in tiers. If I started a team tomorrow, theoretically, I could move it up the ranks and get into the top level. I have to work my way into it. Rather than get a draft pick or get rewarded and tank to get better and promote parity, they've got promotion and relegation. There's 20 teams in a league. There's a lower league behind it with 20 teams usually in it. If you finish last, you get your ass knocked down. You get moved down, okay? And the team that won the league or finished top 3, they move up to the next level. So you'll see fights to the death at the end of a season for teams fighting to stay alive because the monetary value to stay alive is so great that they're fighting, and you'll see the last place team beat the first place team at the end. And instead of going, you morons, you just ruined our draft, they're celebrating like they just won a championship. And it's awesome. So the European Super League is what they're trying to do is these billionaires who have bought into these local clubs that have been around for 150 years are trying to take that risk out of it. The big money right now, besides the league games, is in a tournament called Champions League. There's 5 big leagues in Europe, and they're country-based: Spain, France, Italy, England, and Germany. I like to say that's very similar to the Power 5 conferences in college football. That's where the similarities are because you're competing for the same players. You're following basically the same rules, but in the only time you ever play each other is in this one tournament called Champions League. And there's a ton of money in it. And you've got to finish in the top part of your league. Usually it's top 4 in your league in order to qualify for this tournament. Well, you don't qualify it for every year because it's merit-based. And guess what? People who are making billions of dollars do not like to risk those millions of dollars. They don't want any risk. So these assholes, pardon my language, but I'm a little bit pissed about it, are trying to take the risk out of it. They're saying they're doing this high school clique mentality of we're the cool kids. Everybody watches us. We're going to start our own league where we just play each other. You're not allowed in. Oh, we might let 5 in a year if you guys qualify. We might let you come sit at the table before we kick you down the line, before we kick you back down the line to go play with the peasants again. But we're going to take all the players. We're going to take all the money. And by the way, this is good for you. This is good for you because now we're going to have more money to buy your players. So then you'll have more money. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So that's what the European Super League is all about. It's about these clubs who don't want to compete anymore. They're tired of competing. They don't want to risk. They don't want to risk not playing in the biggest competition. They don't want to risk possibly moving down a lower league. And it's anti-competitive. I've said for years, as socialist as Western Europe is, it's pretty cutthroat capitalist in how they deal with their teams. Whereas the land of opportunity and freedom, there is no opportunity and freedom in our sports. You got to buy your way in. You got to be approved by the people that are already in it. And then once you're in, you're set for life. Doesn't matter if you've got any ambition and want to win or lose. It doesn't matter. I can go 4-12 and you're going to kick me my money anyway. And my team value is going to keep going up. And the only people that suffer are you, the fans. Me as an owner, I just keep getting richer. It's disgusting. And they're trying to do that. And it's led by 3 Americans, naturally, in the European League, in the English Premier League, that have bought 3 of the biggest clubs, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Liverpool.
Is it Kroenke?
American ideal to close down competition, and it's disgusting. And the fans of these teams, not just the teams that have been invited to do this, but the fans of everybody in football, not just the fans of the teams that aren't invited, but the fans of the teams that are invited are disgusted. And I'm one of those teams. Chelsea's playing today, and for just a little bit, I'm going to try and forget about all this and just watch a nice football match. But the game doesn't matter anymore. Chelsea's in a top 4 fight. What it means to play top 4 means you get to go play in this big tournament. It's a big match. Well, it was. Now it doesn't matter. Now it doesn't matter because they're going to be in the biggest competition anyway. Well, when you start playing games that don't matter, people stop watching. And that's where I hope this happens. People say, oh, this is capitalism and it's worse. It's not, though. As a consumer, we have a choice to squash this damn thing. Capitalism can kill this thing because we have the power as consumers. If you can hold off watching your favorite team in an unholy competition, it'll go away. It'll go away. So we can as fans, as consumers, we can fix this. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours in the comments. Now I got to take a break because I think my pulse just went up to about 120 because yeah, I'm pissed off about this because what I love about international football is how different it is from how uncompetitive our sports are. Everything's done in the name of parity. That's not competition. That's not rewarding ambition. We punish ambition and reward failure. That's insane. That's anti-American. So that's what I think.
All right, everybody breathe. First off, take a big sip of coffee. Maybe that'll get the blood pressure up even higher. Is it Stan Kroenke who's one of the main drivers of this?
Yes.
Oh, man, he is.
Stan doesn't want to put his money into Arsenal. And he's realizing Arsenal hasn't made Champions League in about 5 years, partially because of the way he has stewarded this program, that they're not losing money. It's one of those, it's like, oh, we only made 50 million instead of 100 million. So we lost $50 million. Meanwhile, the value of his franchise has gone up $1 billion, of his club has gone up $1 billion. To guys like Kroenke, that's losing money. So he doesn't want to compete. And who suffers for that? Arsenal fans. Arsenal fans have suffered greatly under Kroenke. And this will just ensure that he never, ever has to have any ambition for Arsenal Football Club. None. Yeah. I can just sit there and I'm automatically in the competition and I can just sit there and count my money. It is 100% against where this sport has been over the last 150 years. And it's sick.
That is a major bummer. And for me personally, I do enjoy the club football, but I think my favorite is tuning in every 2 years, whether it be the European champion or the Euros or the World Cup. And there is going to be potentially some ramifications for that as well for these players, correct?
It could be. FIFA's getting involved. And that's what's so bad about it is FIFA's as corrupt as UEFA. And it's like a bunch of – it's almost like the Italian mafia. It's like these different families who are all crooks fighting over who gets to be the most crooked. So it's hard for you to have. It's hard to say that there's a good guy involved in this, but FIFA, and that's why I said it's up to us as consumers to put an end to this. It's our fault there's so much money in sports.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones buying the shirts and paying all these outrageous money for games and watching the commercials and patronizing the sponsors. It's our fault. So, we can take back some of the control. But Stan Kroenke is one of the guys spearheading this for sure.
Man. Well, couldn't care less about football, but enjoy your insight, and I agree with everything Scott says. We also had somebody up here saying,
I appreciate it.
Talk with Scott. Oh, here we go. Mitch Mann. I'd love to talk with Scott. Well, he's right here. Mitch Mann.
He said that. He said that when I said if anybody wants to stick around, he goes, "Yeah, I'd love to hear it." And Dave, the general manager aspect of me in the player movement and personnel and scouting and the promotion and relegation. Forget the sport. If you just watch it, like us box scores, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating how they handle things. Instead of, if you're rooting for your team to lose, something's wrong with the system. It really is. Something's wrong with the system if you think that losing is the best thing for your team, unless it's to get out a coach because you're afraid he's going to save his job and you have to stick with him for another year. Then I might understand. It's like, God, I hope they sack this guy. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck like this for another year and you've got no hope. But the player personnel and scouting and signing and doing all of that and the up and down movement, who's in the league, who's going to be out of the league, who makes a tournament, who doesn't, forget the game, that aspect of it. It's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah, and I don't want to be that guy, but I'll admit, 2019, Week 17, Broncos versus Raiders. Everyone's like, oh, you can't root for the Broncos to lose against the Raiders. I wouldn't have been upset with the outcome if the Broncos had lost, because that's the difference between picking 10 or picking 15, and the value of that is a upper third, second round pick.
Right,
like that much difference.
Because we reward failure, and we incentivize losing. Something if you're playing sports, something's wrong with that, Nick. Something's wrong with that. If losing is a good thing, that's wrong. That's not what sports are all about. Instead, if you're sitting there at 19th out of 20, winning that game means you get to stay in the NFL or you go to NFL 2. By God, I know what you want to have happen.
Yep.
And your
100%.
boys and your fans are going to be out there fighting for their lives, and you're going to celebrate that win like you just won the damn Super Bowl. And it's exciting. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
Even as as a team that is one of these super clubs, Chelsea shouldn't be fighting for relegation. But I'll watch those relegation scraps, towards the end of the season between two teams that are at the bottom. I'm watching, Kansas and Vanderbilt play each other to see who gets to stay in the league. Yeah, I am. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Instead
about
of,
bad.
I hope we lose. Instead of, I hope we lose because it's better for us. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that whole model.
Yeah, and I know the Broncos fans and the players are getting a little bit tired of meaningless football the last month of the year. Like playing Denver versus the Chargers, okay, well, they still need to go out there and play, but what does it matter, right? Like, what's the difference? You can obviously follow the player development, storylines, et cetera, but like, what is the actual outcome of the game? If you have a relegation kind of system, then by damn, those games really
But
matter.
it can't happen because this is a franchise model and people have already paid their way in. They bought a ticket. You can't kick them out now. And that's, it's, again, like I said, it's anti-competitive. I call it, it's a government-backed monopoly, which, in the USA, that kind of goes against what we're all about. And we've come to accept it with our sports. And I'm not really sure why.
Yeah.
We love our teams. That's why we love our teams and the players are on it. So we don't realize how unfair this stuff is and how backwards it is until you start paying attention to some other things. It's like, well, it's not fair that this team can't compete with them. Then why are they? Then they shouldn't be in the league. Let's move them down to a level where they can compete. And if you really love your team, you'll enjoy watching competitive games instead of them getting their asses kicked by, players who have, teams who have more resources and ambition. Find your level. That's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be at the highest level. I watch, youth soccer and youth baseball and softball every weekend. I enjoy it. So
I bet you have some very interesting opinions about the NCAA format and how they treat these
the National Coalition Against Athletes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to save that for another time because I do got to fly. I got to get off to the 9 to 5 here. But we appreciate everyone that came in here for Scott's soccer 30 minutes there. Really interesting stuff. I'm curious to see how it's going to all change. I'm going to be very upset about if they take Chelsea off my FIFA video games, because that's always very fun for me. Probably one of the more aesthetically pleasing video games out there if you guys are playing those things. But we appreciate it. We'll see what happens there. Guys, that's going to do it for Broncos for Breakfast today. Thank you for everybody who stopped by and donated. Marcus, Wendelin, Tyler Randall. I'm sure we had a couple more as well. Let me see here. There we go. It was
Mr.
JB Sykes.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Sykes as well. So appreciate everyone. We're going to see what happens. What are we, 10 days away, 9 days away from the draft? If you guys have any thoughts about what you want us, yes, Thursday at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. So we'll be here live from 8 Mountain to 9, maybe a little later, because we like to talk. We got some things we can talk about. And if you guys have anything you want us to talk about, also hit us up on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. I know it looks like it's Scott Kennedy, but you can find him at Scout Kennedy. And you can find me at Nick Kendell MHH. If you have any topics that you're like, you know what, I really want to hear you guys discuss blank. I really wanted to get in the offensive line today, but with the Miami news coming out, I mean, that just seemed like a great driver, because how weird that is that, the Eagles are also looking to get in the top 10. What the hell's going on? But so it'll be fun. But I would like to talk some day 2 stuff with you at some point, though. We did a lot of day 1. We did a lot of quarterback. Day 2 is a really interesting spot. That's probably the most fun I have in the draft, because the talent from pick 33 to pick 100, I mean, a lot of great guys. So we appreciate you guys. You got some more baseball today, Scott? What's on the docket for you?
Let's see. Today's soccer practice. So
okay.
Back out there, and then I'll watch Chelsea at 3. I'm going to watch my team in the Premier League. I won't watch them in the Super League, but I'll watch them in the Premier League while they're still in it.
All right, guys. Well, I got to head out. We appreciate all you. You guys stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.